Well, good morning to this week's devotionals starting in Genesis 42. And yes, we're going to actually finish off Genesis this week. Chapter 42, we see Joseph. He's been raised to power, second in command only to Pharaoh. But his dream of his family bowing before him has not been realized yet. And not just this dream to Joseph, God's promise and word to Abraham has not been realized yet. Earlier in Genesis, God told Abraham that his descendants were going to go into Egypt, be mistreated, and then after a long period of time, be returned to the land promised by God. Now, note by the phrase descendants of Abraham, the Bible doesn't mean all of Abraham's physical descendants. Abraham had 7 other children other than Isaac. The phrase descendants of Abraham is specifically talking about those who are of the line of promise, or those that God has given the promise that would continue on through generations from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob and then his family. The Bible follows those God is working through for his purpose of bringing about that restoration, that reunion of heaven and earth, and the restoration of humanity's relationship with God. Again, we need to remember the main character in the Bible is God. It's Jesus, not Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. It's God. And so, how does God get his people to Egypt? And again, this is we're going to see what happens over the next number of chapters and days in these devotionals. Again, it started with Joseph's dreams, brothers' jealousy, Joseph sold into slavery, accusations of attempted rape, imprisonment, interpreting dreams, being forgotten, and then an act of God with Pharaoh. Joseph now is in place. And yet all the while through this, Joseph kept being faithful to God. He trusted that God was with him. So Joseph is in Egypt, the rest of the family. Famine is what happens in the land, the promised land, which again should be a reminder for us. Not all things are going to go rosy for followers of God. We're in a broken world. So because of the famine in the promised land, Jacob, or Israel, he sends his 10 of 11 remaining sons to Egypt to trade for food because they heard Egypt's got food. But he doesn't send Benjamin. That's the other son through his favorite wife, Rachel, the younger full brother of Joseph. Now Benjamin is Jacob's favorite. The brothers travel to Egypt. They're recognized by Joseph. They don't recognize him. After all, they think he's either in slavery, dead, definitely not second in command of Egypt. Joseph gives them a hard time, puts one of them in prison as a guarantee that they'll return, puts fear into them about not returning without their other brother that they've told him about, which he already knew. And then he sends them back not just with food, but also with their payment as well. And when the brothers, as they travel back, they find the money, they panic. They're terrified. They don't know what's going on. And Jacob is despondent here, despite Reuben's vow to him. After all, Reuben has already showed a lack of character. I mean, he wants to be a leader. He's the firstborn. He wants to be kind of that next generation, the one who will head the family. But he already shown he lacks the character of a good leader. Here's a thought I want to bring for us today from this chapter. Think of the events that God worked with here to bring about his purpose. A lot of them are negative. Famine, family brokenness, just to name 2. But God is still working to accomplish his purposes. He's fulfilling his promises not only to Joseph, but also to Abraham 3 generations prior. And so I want to give you this encouragement. If your circumstances today are negative, don't despair. Do what Joseph did. Trust that God is with you. Trust God's long-term plans. trust God's long-term promises over you because of and leading to Jesus. May the Lord bless you and keep you today. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you. And today, would you know his peace? God bless.